Hey guys, so we're gonna do something a little different today. Instead of the standard, I just show you my arrangement or whatever I've been working on through a MuseScore MIDI track. Instead, I'm gonna take you guys through my process of creating an arrangement. I already have the arrangement planned out and everything, so yeah, but I'm gonna pretend that I don't. So I'm gonna take you from square one of my arrangement, where it's just an idea in my head, to the final product. So let's jump right into it. We're gonna go into MuseScore, okay? Now, my arrangement process starts well before MuseScore. The process before MuseScore just looks like me listening to the music over and over again, familiarizing myself with it, going through it all, making sure I really understand the music. The original music, that is. So today we're gonna be working with Jubilee City. Personally, I already know kind of what I want from this. I want a jazz combo kind of idea, but with no horns. So what I did here is I just went into the category jazz to pull up jazz combo, because it gives me all the presets for a jazz combo score, and I can work from there. So we're gonna go ahead and just hit done. That's what I normally do. There are more options that you can select, but this is my process. So now in here, you can see we got trumpet, alto, tenor, trombone, guitar, piano, bass, drums. Okay, standard jazz combo. I'm gonna go ahead and put in the title right now. It's always what I do. The composer. To remove these instruments from here, because I don't want trombone, tenor sax, alto sax, trumpet, or guitar, I don't think. There's a couple ways that I do it. Sometimes I go to instruments and I just remove them here. Or the other way I do it is I hit the I key, which opens up the instruments tab, and I remove them here. When I do it here, I can then go to the instrument that I want, and I can add it in. So I want vibraphone. I know that I want vibraphone, so we're gonna add some vibraphone. So from here, this is where the note writing happens. Now, when I start note writing, I don't start with the first measure, okay? And there's a reason for that, because I might want to put a little intro before the actual, before the actual melody starts. So we're gonna start writing out the melody in the vibraphone. So let's go ahead and write it in. So I'm gonna go ahead and write this out, and I will see you guys in a bit. So we're back. I have a little bit more written out. I've added my subtitle, I've added me as the arranger, and I've added a little intro. And then I have most of the first little bit of the melody that I want written out already. Now, there's more to it than just this, but obviously there's more to this song than just this. But I'm gonna go over a little bit more of what I do during the process, because you see these little arrow things, and that just makes it so pretend like this wasn't there. Maybe that measure would be here. Okay, it doesn't actually do that, but that's layout stuff. So I want 4 measures per line, and most editors like to do that. I personally really like to do that, because a lot of the melodies that people work with are 4-bar phrases. If you don't know what a phrase is, go learn what a phrase is. I want those phrases to be easily recognized. So instead of having 5 bars in a line, I'll have 4 bars in a line, so it completes the phrase in one line. And then the second line is the next phrase, and so on and so forth. All right, I'm gonna write some more notes. I will see you guys in a bit. So with this arrangement, I came up with this idea, and I wrote it out. So here's what the idea is. I play the melody, like actual melody, and then I play the counter melody without the melody playing. It's an idea that can work simply because the counter melody is so active, Now, if you have an inactive counter melody, it might not work, or if you don't have a counter melody at all, obviously it doesn't work. But it's like an introduction of ideas for the song. So you can introduce the ideas at the beginning of the song and then put the ideas together later in the song. And it's something that can turn out to be really cool if you end up doing it right. Now, in this case, you can see I don't have any bass written out yet or drums. I always leave drums for last just because a lot of the times when I'm writing out drums, I go and sit at a drum kit and I just listen to it and I just play. Because writing drums is stupid and no one should actually do that. Now, this next section I wanted to touch in on because I'm gonna do something a little interesting. If you guys know Jubilee City melody, it goes like dun dun bum bum ba dum bum 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 dun 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 dun, and then it goes right? So, I mean, this one's slower, okay, right now. It's still in the introduction. It's introducing the piece still, okay? And the intention of this next chunk is like get bigger, right? And the piece right now is super floaty because I wrote it slow. And I'm keeping that floaty feeling while making it bigger, but also speeding it up a little bit and making it more active so that when it does speed up and gets really active, it segues nicely and it's not just like, oh, I'm fast now. Okay, so that's what I'm working on right now. You'll see it in a second. All right, and we're back again. So I actually changed my mind while writing it. Instead of keeping this part slow, I wanted it faster. So you can see I added an accelerando and put it at 120 here. And it doesn't hit the tempo that the song is really gonna be at later, but it makes it a little faster. It picks up the pace a little bit. And especially with all this triplet work, this quarter note triplet work especially, it makes it really flow really nicely. So you have the melody nice and slow, and then it picks up pace. So this is my little idea, and this is how I wrote it out. All right, so I'm just gonna touch on this because I wrote a bass part that looks a little funky, right? That thing right there. So another thing that I do very often when I'm writing these arrangements is I actually go to the instrument and pick it up and make sure that what I'm writing is actually playable. Because if it's not playable, then no one will ever play your part, and then you're gonna be sad because you wrote a part and no one is gonna play it because they're like, this is stupid. So make sure your parts are playable. A lot of piano arrangers don't make their parts playable, and everyone's all like, oh, this is so beautiful. But then they try and play it and they're like, this is stupid. Can't play it. No one can play it. So I'm gonna pick up a bass and play that right now. Bass guitar acquired. All right, so let's see here. What do we got? If you can't tell, I'm not good at bass, which means that if I can play it, then a bass player can definitely play it. So even if you can't really play the instrument that well, pick it up and play it and make sure that you can play it. Because if you can play it and you can't play the instrument well, then gotta say it, anyone can play it. All right, so here I am with the bass. I can't play the bass very well, but I can play that, which means it's playable. And if I can play it and I can't play bass very well because I'm a percussionist, not a bassist, then a person who can actually play the bass can play it pretty dang well. So another thing that I'll do very often is I'll write out a part and I will just leave it. It'll just be there. And I won't add harmonies, I won't add counter melodies, I won't add any rhythmic stuff, I won't add a bass line or anything. And it'll just sit there, and I can write other stuff and I can think about it. I can write the stuff after it, write the stuff before it, make sure that what I write for all the counter melodies and stuff fits in. Now here's where the arranging really starts, okay? So far, I've written out the melody, and it's exactly the same, if not very, very close to exactly the same as the original Jubilee City. But arranging needs to change something, not just the orchestration. That's called orchestrating. when you just change the orchestration, not arranging. Arranging, you need to change something about the music itself, okay? You can change the order that melodies are played in, which is what I'm about to do. You can change the feel of it, so you can make it go from like super upbeat swing to like a ballad, right? That's technically a kind of an arrangement. You can add decorations and stuff. Not like tree decorations, like decorations on the melody, okay? There's a lot of things that you can do to make an arrangement an arrangement. All right, so another check-in for progress and stuff. So I have my faster melody. This is what the actual really meat of the piece is gonna sound like here. But there's one chunk right here that I wanna take an octave down. So I'm gonna do that, take an octave down, okay? But because it's an octave lower in the bass area, it sounds really muddy. So all those notes in the low end are clashing with each other and creating this really terrible sound. But when it's higher, it sounds just fine. So when you take a thing an octave lower and it's really crowded like this, you have to go in there and you gotta take away some notes. So the part that I really want is that chromatic triplet up, but then back down here. And I really just need the fourth in that chord and I need the third in that. And then this one, I don't need the bottom note. I need that tritone there, okay? This here is what I need, okay? So now it's less crowded. It doesn't crunch and just make a mess of sound, right? So when you have low stuff, don't put a lot of notes next to each other. It can be done in the high stuff, it can be done in the middle stuff, but in the low stuff, keep it spread out. All right, so we're in the point of the song where there's a key change, and I know there's a key change because I know the music pretty dang well. We're gonna go ahead and go over how you figure out the key really quick. Now, if you look around in the music, we'll take this chunk right here, okay, this page. You can see there's a lot of accidentals, okay? And these accidentals are these sharp. And you can see we have a lot of different notes that are sharps, okay? So this might not be the best page for reference for this, but we know for a fact that F, so if you know your keys, you know that F sharp is the first sharp in the order of sharps, okay? Now, F sharp is obviously sharp here, it's sharp here, it's sharp here. It's always sharp when F sharp appears, okay? So we know that it's at least in F sharp, okay? Or not in F sharp, it's at least in G major, okay? Now we got F sharp right at the beginning. That's a good tell, kind of, but it's the 7th. We have a C sharp here, which is important. Do we have any C naturals is the next question, okay? And I am not seeing any C naturals. So we can make the good assumption here that we're most likely in D major. So we're gonna go ahead and add the D major key signature. And if we do that, we can see that F sharp is now in the key. It's not an accidental technically. C's are also just in the key. Now we have this guy here, that's an A sharp, but we have A naturals right before it, so we're not gonna bother with that one. For some reason we have G flats. Those should just be F sharps. So let's go ahead and change those to F sharps. Along with these guys here. We are going to go ahead and put a courtesy natural there. So the reason I did that is because we're in a sharp key, right? We're in D major, which has sharps, okay? We want to avoid using flats as much as possible because we're reading in a key with sharps already. So instead of using the B flat, we're going to go ahead and use the A sharp, even though it makes us use less accidentals if we use the B flat. I'm gonna go ahead and just keep writing it out without changing the key and show you what that looks like, and it'll make you realize that, yeah, that probably needs a new key. So let's go ahead and do that. All right, so we're back again. I wrote out 4 measures of the next section, just 4 measures, and you can already see that's a lot of accidentals. There's a lot of flats, there's a lot of naturals. So we can see already F sharp is naturaled, and there's just a lot of flats. And if I take that A flat key and I put it in, you can see all of them just magically go away. Well, not all of them. There's still some chromatic stuff going on. But because we're in this flat key now, we do use naturals and flats now. Really, I have the advantage of already knowing what key it's in, but a lot of times you won't have that advantage. Take the time to figure out what key your music is in. So I'm gonna go ahead and finish out this arrangement, and then I'll show you the last final couple steps of my process. All right, we're back. I'm working on the solo section right now. And it doesn't really look like a solo section right now, mostly because there's all these backgrounds happening here. I put backgrounds in both the vibraphone and the piano. In the recording that I'm gonna do of it, there's only gonna be a vibraphone solo, there's not gonna be a piano solo. And what I'm doing right now is basically, I'm going through the entire thing and I'm making sure that none of these chords play in the playback. I'm gonna be using the MIDI recording as kind of like a tempo keeper of some sort while I am soloing. So I don't really want the chords playing in the background if the backgrounds are already playing, if that makes sense, right? So I've got the backgrounds going, I don't need the chords. The chords are more like a reference for the soloist. All right, anyway, I'm gonna keep going through this. All right, so we're back. I think I'm finished writing the notes for all the pitched instruments. I should differentiate from that for that. I'm not done with the drums yet because I don't think I'll be writing them. I'll just play them later. And we're into the final stages of how I go about making my arrangements. So this last part here is the most tedious part. It's why no one ever does it, which I think is silly. I think everyone should do it. And it's formatting. I'm just going through a couple things here, making sure I have the right clefs where I need them, making sure I have the right octaves, the right everything. Everything needs to be correct, okay? And it's very important that things are consistent when you do these things. I'll go through and check dynamics in a second here. Actually, I'll do it right now, so let's see. And I'm also gonna be adding rehearsal markers, okay? Now, not many people do this. I like to do it, adding rehearsal markers based on measure numbers, okay? So this is measure 9. So I'm gonna go ahead and click 9. Now, every single time I add a rehearsal marker, it'll just be the measure that I put it on, right? So if I put a rehearsal marker here, which I want to, pop it in, it'll be 17, okay? And then the next rehearsal marker will be here. And the reason you do this kind of thing is so that, like, because this is not one person playing, this is 4 people playing, right? Say they want to work on a specific section, right? And they all have their individual music, and they're like, let's start at this one spot. No one knows where that is because they're like, let's start at the spot that goes like dun 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 dun, right? And it's A, not a good spot to start because it's like right before a transition, and B, it's in multiple spots in the music, so no one's gonna know which spot you're talking about there. So you add these rehearsal markers so that everyone can be like, oh, let's start at 26, or oh, let's start at 37, something like that, okay? And then everyone has those numbers so that everyone can just start there, right? Rehearsal markers should happen in major changes in the music. So for example, at this key change, there should be a rehearsal marker, okay? But I go through all of these processes at the same time. So I check my dynamics, I check my rehearsal markers, everything same time. It just works a little bit smoother and easier that way. Here, you can see I'm doing various things to make it so it's 4 measures a line. It doesn't have to be 4 measures a line. Sometimes I do 6, sometimes I do 2. Like for example, this one will not fit 4 measures in this line. So I'm gonna go ahead and make it 2 measures in this line. And it still keeps the format somewhat the same. I just need to make sure I remember to do 2 or 4 measures in the next line as well. Okay, and I would prefer to do 4 if I can, which I can. So I'll do 4 measures in this line. And now I have the solo section starting on the first bar, and it's 4 measures a line, nice and easy. And then the head out doesn't need a lot of rehearsal markers. It's the same as before, right? So they might not need to rehearse it as much, who knows? Now, personally, I hate it when this happens, where you have one little system on the last page. It sucks. But I'm not actually done formatting, so I'm not worried about it yet, okay? The other thing that I do when I format these things is I make all of these small stabs. On the score, you don't need large stabs all the time. You're not reading off the score. You're reading off of separate parts. So I'm gonna go into staff part properties and go ahead and make these all small stabs. That might make it so that one spot where I had to do 2 measures, I can actually fit 4 measures as well. So sometimes I remember to do it before, sometimes I don't, whatever. But you can see already there's now 3 systems on this first page, which is nice, okay? And then where's that little 2-bar chunk? Right here. I'm actually gonna leave it as is because it's a really busy chunk, and we start that phrase there. So, and now I have 2 systems on the last page, okay? So I'm okay with 2 systems on the last page. I'd prefer it if there was 3. To make it 3, I'm gonna go ahead and make it so there's only 2 systems on the first page instead. So the title has a little bit more room here. The last couple things I do, I change how the page numbers are lined up, right? If you've ever looked at my sheet music, you know I put the page numbers in the center on the bottom. And then I have measure numbers on every single measure. So how I do that is I go ahead and format style, okay? You go header footer first. We're gonna change the page numbers, okay? So I don't have it be different on my even and odd pages, okay? So normally how I do this is I go ahead and note I have most of these memorized already, okay? If you don't have them memorized, if you just hover over it, it'll pop up and you can see them, but it disappears pretty quick sometimes. So I just suggest memorizing some of these. Capital P makes it so the page number shows up on the first page as well. Lowercase p, it only shows up on the second page. And then F for file. So the file's name is Jubilee City, it'll show up there. Measure numbers next. Okay, so I go into measure numbers, I select measure numbers, it wasn't showing measure numbers in the first place, and I do interval, and I go down to 1, so it shows up on every measure, because I am generous and it's not that hard to just print the measure numbers on these things. So print the measure numbers, don't be a baby. Be nice to your musicians, okay? They work hard already. You're gonna make them write in all their measure numbers? That's stupid. And that's that. I always hide the measure number underneath the rehearsal markers because it's kind of redundant to have it written twice there. So what I was doing is I was making those measure numbers invisible so they wouldn't be able to see them. And then the last thing that this still needs is more keyboard markings, these pedal markings here. That's basically it. I'm just making these little staccato markings show up a little better, and then I'm gonna go ahead and make some parts. So the nice thing about MuseScore is it will automatically make the parts for you. Okay, so all you need to do to make the parts is you go up to this little parts tab and then you just hit open all. And now you can see the drum set part is blank. It's got nothing, okay? I'm keeping it that way, I don't care. I'm gonna write it later. Okay, but you can also see that they're all in the small staff format. You don't want that, so you're gonna go into staff properties and change that back, okay? Make sure they're large staff on the parts. And now you're gonna go through that formatting thing again on each individual part. All right, so I just finished formatting each individual part. It's important to do that too, so that it's nice and easy for the player to read. You don't want weird measure numbers in certain systems and stuff like that. So you want to make sure you can go through every single one and make it sight readable. Okay, like if a person who is proficient at the instrument obviously sat down with the music in front of them playing the instrument, they should be able to sight read it. Maybe not at tempo, but they should be able to go through the music and read it, right? They shouldn't have to sit there and be like, what is this? What am I looking at, right? They shouldn't have to do that, okay? So make sure you go through every single one of your parts, every single one, even if you have like 20 parts. My last little snippet, I guess, is when you go through doing an arrangement and you're writing out the notes and stuff and you're going through the entire process, it's okay to change things, right? I actually, if you remember earlier when I was mentioning that one little chunk that I had written and I was just leaving it for later, right? I actually deleted it. I didn't want it anymore. It was like right here or something, and it's no longer there. Okay, I deleted it. I decided that I didn't need it, and I decided that I didn't want it, so I removed it. Changing things in the process is a part of the process, right? You remove things, you add things. That's what an arrangement is, okay? So keep doing it, keep working on it, right? And then, even if your arrangements aren't good right away, work on them, right? You can come back to the same arrangements. Like, this is my 4th time arranging Jubilee City, okay? Like, you can come back to the same arrangements that you've done in the past and work on them again and make them better, okay? It's not like you did it once and that's the only time you can ever do it. You are done working on it, right? It's not true. You can come back later, right? You will get better over time if you continue to do it. It's the same with everything else, right? You do something enough, you get better at it. You arrange enough, you get better at it, believe it or not, okay? If you made it this far into the video, I guess what I was actually saying and doing must have somewhat made sense to you. So I would like to thank you for making it all the way here. If you'd like more content like this where I explain what I do or I explain how MuseScore works, go ahead and leave a comment or a like, and I'll know to make more stuff like this. Hopefully I'll get Jubilee City out soon. I also plan on making a full big band arrangement and getting that recorded at some point this summer. So look forward to that. If you have any requests for what you'd like me to arrange, also send them my way. I'd love to take requests. So that's it from me. See ya.